Flags! Nothing symbolizes your undying patriotism more than a rectangular piece of fabric gently queefing in the wind. A flag is an abstract representation of not just a country, but a people, and whatever ideas can be instilled in them that makes them most likely want to die on foreign soil. Flags are something people have marched for, died for. They've been burnt, stepped on, clumsily left behind on the moon. And in 2016, the world held its breath as the biggest election of the year took place, the New Zealand flag referendum. A mostly pointless endeavour that wasted an estimated 26 million New Zealand dollars, or roughly 16 US dollars. The referendum not only let us choose our new flag, but design it as well. A government body opening up submissions through a barely regulated online portal. How could that possibly go wrong? The New Zealand government is happy to spend $26 million on a flag while there are so many better causes out there. And while it would be easy and indeed quite fun for me to sit here and criticise them while doing nothing myself, I've instead decided to team up with today's sponsor, Tab for a Cause. No other reason, just purely out of the kindness of my own heart. Tab for a Cause is a free browser extension that earns money for charity every time you open a new tab. Of course, it doesn't matter what awful things you end up using that tab for. You can sleep easy knowing that you've already done your good deed for the day. Sorry buddy, I'm gonna have to downvote this one.
Too easy. Thanks to Tab for a Cause, I was able to spread misinformation on Twitter, and I feel great.
Thanks to Tab for a Cause, I was able to look up guilt-free.
Now I know what you're thinking. Where does all that money come from? In addition to some snazzy widgets and a beautiful daily picture that you can even pick yourself, a small ad is displayed in the bottom corner of the screen. The revenue from these ads goes towards your chosen charity, and you can pick everything from helping shelter cats to removing all of the rubbish from the sea and putting it where it belongs. Florida. After watching My 600 Pound Life, it doesn't seem fair that they get to have all the fun. So I personally use the tab for ending hunger to prevent and treat severe malnutrition around the world. If you also want to rest easy, knowing that the horrible things you do online are helping those in need, add the free browser extension by clicking the link in the description below. Tab for a Cause. Be awful, do good. Before we rip into the how of changing the flag, let's have a quick dive into the why. New Zealand has had a few flags over its short history, from the United Tribes flag to the Union Jack. Yeah, real original, you fucking idiots! To this abomination, which thankfully was only used for 2 years and only for maritime purposes. And finally, to the flag we all know and tolerate, the New Zealand ensign. Designed by a Royal Navy officer in the late 1860s, the flag symbolises everything important about New Zealand. Water, stars, England. The New Zealand ensign, or Big Juicy as I'm going to call it from now on, was widely used around our small nation before being officially adopted in 1902 and has flapped phallically above our government buildings ever since. So you've had your flag for almost 150 years and it's done its job well enough. It's been rectangular and, well, that's all it really has to do, I suppose. But there are a few legitimate reasons why it might be time for a new one. Given that New Zealand was a British colony for all of 12 years back in the 1840s, retaining the Union Jack at this point feels like keeping the Facebook profile picture of you and your ex-girlfriend 170 years after you broke up, which is lazy at best and creepy at worst. The flag does nothing to represent the native Māori people, who, you know, were there first. Finally, our flag, along with our accent, culture, and general vibe, are constantly being mistaken for Australia's. Yes, I know this is going to come as a shock to some of you, but I am actually from New Zealand. And also the flag I've been showing this whole time isn't New Zealand's, it's Australia's. And I'm sure most of you didn't even notice. Well, except for the one smug guy who commented without finishing the video and now has to go back and edit it, you absolute twit. But you thought you were real clever, huh? This has led to several instances where New Zealand and Australian Prime Ministers and Ambassadors are seated under the incorrect flags at international meetings, or when Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke was greeted to New Zealand flags during a 1984 visit to Ottawa. People opposed to change were primarily concerned with the excessive, insurmountable costs that it would take to democratically change a flag which most people were, at worst, indifferent towards, while others felt that a change disrespected the soldiers who perished while fighting for the current flag. The debate for changing our flag has existed since at least the Second World War, with each attempt drumming up slightly more attention than the last. Although 10 times 0 is still 0. Various TV, newspaper, and research polls from 1999 onwards found that, in almost every case, Kiwis were either against or otherwise didn't give a shit about changing the flag. Of course, it's up to our elected officials to represent the masses. And only one man had the balls to stand up and tell the New Zealand public that no, they don't want to fix the housing crisis or put a big Simpsons dome over Auckland. We want a flag. Sir John Key was, by most metrics, a successful politician. With New Zealand lacking term limits, he led the country as Prime Minister and leader of the centre-right National Party for 3 terms. Despite his political success, it seems that Key became increasingly interested in one thing: legacy. Hoping to be remembered for more than repeatedly pulling a waitress's ponytail as a joke, ruining planking, or that 3-way handshake during the trophy ceremony at the Rugby World Cup, Johnny Boy set his sights on New Zealand's rectangular representation. In the lead up to the 2014 general election, Key promised that if National was elected for a 3rd term, they would hold a nationwide flag referendum. While campaign promises are usually about as flimsy as that promise you made to your high school girlfriend that you'll be together forever, changing the flag is a huge rigmarole that gives the illusion of doing something while stroking the egos of the narcissists in charge. So of course it was one of the few promises actually followed through on. The plan was simple. Actually it wasn't, or it wouldn't have cost $26 million, but bear with me. The government would field submissions from the public via an online submission system. A flag consideration panel would shortlist the cream of the crop, and the public would then vote for which of the choices was their favourite via mail-in ballot. There would then be a second mail-in referendum that pitched the winner of the first vote against the current flag, and the winner of that referendum would officially be crowned the new flag of New Zealand. In the end, over 10,000 flag ideas were uploaded to the government submission website, and I can think of nobody better to go through them with than our own resident, poorly regulated online poll expert. So, Mr. Internet Historian, I don't think a lot of people know this, but you are in fact from the country of New Zealand, much like myself.
Wrong.
Wrong, okay. Would you like to elaborate?
No.
Okay.
I think that's pretty good. It reminds me of like a coat of arms. It's got the 2 silver ferns. So in New Zealand, the silver fern is, if you look on the underside of a particular type of fern, you got this like cool silvery shit. Symbol of New Zealand. And then you got the Southern Cross, which is a constellation. And even still today, that's how we find our way home. We basically look at the stars and we go, oh shit, I'm down the road.
This was just a photograph someone took.
I like the one at the bottom right now. It's Live, Laugh, New Zealand. Yeah, that's pretty ugly. There's quite a lot of ugly things in here. Yeah, have you got any nice ones?
No. I think this is probably the most iconic one that came out of this whole process.
I struggle to really find a reason against it. Like, immediately everyone would recognize that's the New Zealand flag. It's nice and simple, so you could draw it. You could change that laser bit to be a 5-point star, so that it does still represent the Southern Cross. And then otherwise, you've probably got the most interesting flag of anyone in the world. And instead they went, you know what, let's just do a flag like everybody else. Or a corporate logo. And it's so disappointing to see, but it's so typical as well. I honestly think that if they had put that up as the offer to change, it would have got the majority vote. Like unironically,
yeah,
it would have won. No problem.
What about this one here, which is just yeah, it exemplifies when we lose a game of COD.
No, you know what it is? It's when you fall asleep.
So how about this?
It's harsh on the eyes, which is good. It tells you the people that you're a strong country. You're off-center. You tell people that, hey, look, I don't go the middle way. You've got a sort of off-cornflower blue that says, hey, look, if you've got color blindness problems, good luck. It's really simply and easy to draw, which would be great for children.
You like the simplicity of this one, but it can get simpler. How about this one?
Oh yeah, no, I like that. Does it contain the bit that says New Zealand government? Because I quite like it. And the copyright at the bottom right-hand side. I like this.
Mm-hmm.
I like the simplicity of it. You basically lay claim to an entire colour.
Exactly. Which is much more Chad than like, oh, we'll have a little bit of 3 colours.
You can save money on printer ink.
Unless it's blue.
I could see being quite proud of this. And I like the idea that if I just happen to wear a blue shirt, someone might say, hey, are you wearing the New Zealand flag? As a no, it's just a blue shirt. But thank you for asking.
Does anywhere have a monocoloured flag?
Well, China gets pretty close, don't they?
Oh, like this one.
Oh. Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. No, I like this. Yeah, so it's a display of power. Look at the way they grip onto those silver ferns. I don't like it.
I don't really get this one.
You've got the Southern Cross, and then you've got the regular cross, although it is on the side. It's just kind of pointing to the right. It's going that way, fellas. I like it. It reminds me of something, but I just can't remember from where. But whatever it was, I like it.
This is kind of an interesting one.
Oh, it's a QR code. What does it go to?
Give it a scan. It goes to newzealand.com.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of good.
People at home, feel free to scan it too. So, I really like the Japanese flag. I think iconic. Top 10 easily. Probably even top 5. But I found this one here, which is kind of like a reverse Japanese flag. And then they put New Zealand in it so you can remember what country, because you don't want to get confused.
Yeah, that's quite clever. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose. What do you want from me?
So, there were a few issues with the process. If opening up the submissions to the same people that named the new Mountain Dew flavour Hitler Did Nothing Wrong didn't make that obvious enough. Which leads me to one of the biggest issues. The flag consideration panel. Look, if you want to fix your car, you take it to a mechanic. If you want to waste your time, you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you want something to look good, you'll go to a designer. The flag consideration panel was made up of a series of semi-prominent New Zealand figures, people who are no doubt very successful in their various endeavours, none of which include design. As one critic noted, this would be like a panel in charge of choosing a new national anthem, not including a single musician, or a panel about child safety online, not including EDP 445. Now, while the panel was quick to assure the nation that they consulted with designers and vexillologists, the people who study flags, they apparently only consulted one designer, who works for Nike, designing shoes. The flag consideration panel whittled the 10,000 submissions down to a long list of 40. And if you look closely, you'll notice that almost all of them suck ass. The problem with excluding designers from the process is that you inevitably end up with the flag equivalent of the car Homer designs, filled to the brim with ground level symbolism that essentially boils down to, oh, that looks like the thing the rugby guys have on their shirts, that's sick. John Key himself was particularly fond of literally using the white fern on a black background that the All Blacks use on their jersey, until it was compared to the ISIS flag. Oh, these ISIS fellas are pretty intense, eh? Iconography can be an evocative tool, but as the Rice Man would say, with great power comes great responsibility. And it can just as easily evoke the cold blandness of a corporate logo. Imagine if the US flag replaced all of its abstract symbolic glory with more tangible examples of Americana, like a cool cutout of a bald eagle, or a guy in boot camp putting a down payment on a Dodge Charger. The long list also lacked variety, featuring multiple of the same design from the same artist, the only change being alternate color palettes ripped from the default choices in Microsoft Paint. This long list at least gives the illusion of choice, especially when compared to the... On the first day of September 2015, we were greeted to the pinch and a punch that was the flag referendum shortlist, or I hope you like ferns. One design used the exact fern graphic that the New Zealand government already uses for made in New Zealand goods. Another utilises the koru, a traditional Māori symbol and one of the more promising motifs found in the long list, which was quickly nicknamed the monkey butt. And finally, Kyle Lockwood's silver fern and Southern Cross design. Oh, and there's another one. They managed to choose even worse colours for this one. That's nice. Why are there 2 of them? Yes, out of the 10,000 designs, The flag consideration panel was gracious enough to take up 2 of the 4 shortlist spots with the same design twice. The flag's artist, Kyle Lockwood, a man presumably named after a chastity belt, also managed to clog up 5 of the 40 longlist spots as well. So I guess we should be grateful that there are only 2 in the finals. Now look, if you like these choices, that's totally fine. At the end of the day, it is personal preference. My biggest issue, besides the lack of variety, is that these all reek of the corporate blandness mentioned earlier. The sort of thing you'd see on a major sports team or an agricultural goods store. The nation was uninspired. The design community lamented the poor choices on offer, and everyone from John Oliver to the Big Bang Theory took their chance to ridicule the process. When suddenly, on the horizon, a ray of hope, a red peak piercing the clouds. In my opinion, Red Peak was the best option that the flag consideration panel nominated in their long list. Oh sure, when you compare it to obvious symbols, it isn't immediately apparent what it represents, but I mean, how apparent is this, or this, or this? The entire piece is dripping with layers of symbolism, referencing the volcanic eruptions that created New Zealand's landmass, our geographical position that sees us being the first to experience a new day, and the Māori creation myth of Rangi and Papa, as well as utilising the colour schemes of both the Union Jack and the Māori flag, which would make it the only shortlist candidate that represented New Zealand's mixed heritage. Its design is simple, elegant, looks great big or small, and 4 of them can be arranged in a way to create a swastika, as one MP was quick to point out. Even if you don't like this one personally, you have to agree that it utilises vexillological principles to help it read as, well, a flag. And had the flag consideration panel picked more options like this instead of the same design twice, we may have had a better final result. After the uproar over the restrictive fur-and-heavy finalists, a grassroots campaign started that would penetrate the long, hard red peak into the sopping wet shortlist. And what might be the only other example of an online petition actually doing something, 50,000 signatures were gathered from frustrated flag fundamentalists that sent a clear message to Parliament that their shortlist choices were hot tripe. In the first real show of passion throughout this entire debacle, a bill was speedrun through Parliament, and Red Peak was added as the 5th choice to the New Zealand flag referendum. It would go on to lose to Kyle Lockwood's black and blue flag in the first round of voting. A few months pass, and the second referendum rolls around. John Key violently oscillates in the corner as his last opportunity to leave a permanent mark on New Zealand quickly approaches. Unfortunately for John, this single-minded focus on legacy may well have been his undoing. Given that a whopping 2% of the population actually felt that the flag was an important issue, Key's insistence on pursuing it anyway, as well as placing himself as the face of the flag change movement, essentially tied his brand and political party to something that should have been purely apolitical. With many people viewing the new flag as John Key's, not New Zealand's, it was quite common for people who opposed him or his party to vote for the old flag purely out of spite. A significant number of voters also submitted vandalised or otherwise invalid votes out of protest, resulting in roughly 1 in 10 needing to be discarded. In the end, despite one man in Auckland yoinking 300 voting papers in order to vote for the new flag, Big Juicy scored a cozy 56.73% of the votes, and it remains the flag of New Zealand to this day. While still a notable loss, the number in favour of the new flag was actually much higher than expected, and with better options, a more thought out process, and a segregation from politics, it is very possible that New Zealand may one day break free of its old flag. After another video to fill the void, why not choose between World of Warcraft scandals or Magic the Gathering scandals? Thanks again to Tab for a Cause for sponsoring this video.